In our house, we never lie. At least that's what I hear dads often tell me. But is that true? Is it accurate to say that we never lie in this house? It's actually very common for parents to lie to their own children, and is that bad? Is it wrong every time a parent lies? Does it need to stop? Are you telling your kids these lies and maybe not even realizing that you are? And where do we go from here? And that's what today's episode is all about. So let's get started. Now, most parents, most dads, they're not setting out to lie to their children. They're not willfully thinking about what they could say to their kids that isn't true. They really do want what they think is best for their kids, and sometimes that means they end up lying to their kids. And sometimes the lie is on purpose because we're trying to build our kids up, and we might use words that we know aren't 100% true, but then other times we don't even realize that we're lying. In this episode today, I'm going to highlight 4 common lies that parents tell their kids and some next steps after that. Now, I'm going to start with a big one that might ruffle some feathers right off the bat. So lie number 1, it's this: you can do and be anything if you set your mind to it and work hard enough for it. Now, this lie, as with so many others, it comes from a place of meaning well, but it's just not true. Every child, like every other human, including you, including me, every child has many things that they're good at and many things they're not good at, things they control and things they can't control. If your son is a 5'1" tall junior in high school, and he tells you that he wants to be the starting center for an NBA team, it doesn't matter how much he wants it and works for it, that's simply not going to happen. Unless, of course, he happens to grow 2 feet in the next year. Now, no child can do and succeed at everything. There will be things that no matter how much they set their mind to it and work for it, they're just not going to achieve those things in life. And as a parent, you're doing your child a disservice by encouraging them to chase after something they can't succeed in reaching. Your job is to encourage them, that's true. And your job is to teach them and shepherd them through the difficult parts of life, including helping them know when to shift and change directions on something. You can help them, you can teach them, you can coach them, you can support them, and you should be doing all of that. But don't lie to them by telling them that they can do and be anything if they just work hard enough. God did not give every human being exactly the same gifts and abilities. So help your kids to embrace the gifts and abilities that they have been given. Now, lie number 2, that's to tell our kids that they're entitled to something in this world. As a parent, you want your kids to have the best that they can have. But when you tell them that they're entitled to something, what you're really saying is that when they face some sort of disappointment, the problem isn't within themselves, but rather it's in the situation or the other people involved. Being entitled to something, it teaches our kids incorrect expectations and incorrect coping strategies for disappointments, failures, and the hardships that they're going to experience in life. Our kids need to learn how to make the best out of a situation they didn't want to be in, instead of thinking that the situation itself is the problem and they're entitled to something better. Lie number 3, that's to tell our kids that their grades are what's most important. Now, not too many parents will directly say this one with their words, but they'll say it with their actions. They'll look at the report card and then validate the children based on the grades that are received. They'll reward a report card of all A's more than a report card of B's and C's. They will brag to family and friends about the grades their kids receive when the grades are great, and then they'll complain when the grades aren't great. So while the parents may not speak this lie, they often live this lie. The fact is that what matters most is your kids' character, their values, their identity in Christ, and so on. So teach and reinforce those things in your home over the grades. Lie number 4 is to tell our kids that they should ignore what other people say and that it doesn't matter what anyone says anyway. Now, this is a tough one because, like so many others, this lie comes from a place of trying to do the right thing in raising our kids. Now, with this lie, it's often when we're trying to give our kids a sense of security, a feeling of security and self-confidence. But even still, we know this isn't true. We may wish it was for our own lives as well. We may wish it was true, but we know that it's not. The fact is that it does matter what other people say. We know that words can either help or hurt. We know that words can lift up or tear down. We know this because we experience it and feel it all the time in our own lives. It's one reason there's so much instruction in the Bible about how we use our language. Instead, teach your kids the power of words. Teach them how to use their words to lift others up, to help them, to support them, and to encourage them. Now, there are many other lies. This list here, it could keep growing quite easily, but I want to shift from pointing things like this out to where do we go from here? The Bible tells us that we are to live lives of truth. In the 10 Commandments, we're told that we shall not give false testimony. In Ephesians, we're told to speak truthfully. There are many Bible verses about the importance of truth. And if we know being truthful is correct for us, why would it be any different in our conversations with our kids? Now, in most situations, including the examples I mentioned earlier, parents are not trying to be devious. They're not trying to be sinister. They're not trying to mislead their children. They're doing what they think is best. I mean, if you tell your kids that they must eat their spinach or else they won't grow up strong, we know that's a lie, but it's said with positive intentions. But is that okay? Now, what's often happening with all these kinds of lies is that we're getting our own need in the moment taken care of. We get the child to be quiet or to stop asking questions or to sit down or behave the way that we want them to in that situation. However, is any of that serving our kids? What are they learning from these moments? It's our job as parents to raise our children, to build them up and prepare them for this world, and to teach them as the Bible has instructed us to teach them. And we're to do that all the time. We don't just let school or Sunday school do that for us. Sometimes that means we have to set aside what we want for our kids and what they need. Our kids need to learn about boundaries. Our kids need to learn about their emotions. Our kids need to learn about expectations, and they need to learn about disappointments. Our kids also need to learn about processing not getting what they want. Our kids need to learn that the world does not revolve around them. Our kids need to learn to follow Jesus. Now, this means that we're to raise our children with truth. But it's not just a direct, in-your-face truth, because after all, they are children. So the truth, it must be shared with grace and understanding of them at the age that they happen to be. As your kids get older, you can share more and more with them. You can get into more details. You can share more mature elements of whatever the topic or question happens to be. Here are a few questions as I wrap up that I want you to think about when it comes to this subject. Are you lying to your kids because you just don't want to deal with the confrontation right now? Are you lying to your kids because it will just take too much effort to figure out how to tell them the truth in a way that they'll understand? Are you lying to your kids because it will just be easier for you? As a parent, if your children learn that it's okay to lie about things from you, well, you can expect them to lie to you as well. After all, that's what they learned from you, so that's what they're going to do. Now, if this has been you, it's time for you to break the pattern. Become a parent who lives a life of truth. Truth filled with grace from God. That's what Jesus expects from you. And when you choose to live that way, you're setting the example for generations to follow. So let your family be one who lives the life of truth. Now, be sure to subscribe to this show wherever you listen to your podcast or if you're watching on YouTube. Your ratings, your subscriptions, your reviews, likes, comments, shares, all that stuff, it helps other people find the show. So thank you for doing that. All right, enjoy the next show.